Mac, for what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle in the Republican Party may find it hard to believe. Maybe they are in denial, or they just simply don't know. But the fact of the matter is that domestic terrorism and hate crime is nothing new in this country. It has existed from the inception of this country. And it has been perpetrated by those who look like my friends on the other side of the aisle. And the victims have looked like me. And they look like Sheila Jackson Lee. And they look like Jerry Nadler and Steve Cohen, two Jews. And they've looked like Ms. Garcia, who one of my colleagues referred to as a young lady, Judge Garcia. They have looked like Ted Lieu. They have looked like Mondaire Jones, LGBTQ. These are people who sit on this side of the aisle, and so we know what domestic terrorism and hate crime is all about. I'm from the great state of Georgia, representing eastern suburbs of Atlanta. Atlanta was the place where 1 year ago today, 8 people killed by a white supremacist, 6 women killed, 8 people shot, 6 Asian women. And that community has lived in terror since then. And it's no doubt that there's a need for H.R. 350. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle just don't want to believe that there's a need for it because it has a specific focus on white supremacists. Why? White supremacist violence. Why? That's where the hate crime has been coming from. That's the rise in hate crime. It was so vividly illustrated, the rise in hate crime, to the world to see on January 6th of 2021. And nobody will ever forget that white man with the Confederate flag, a big one, walking through the Capitol as one of the insurrectionists. We'll never forget the hangman's noose and the gallows that were set up. Those are triggers for us because we know what that means. The KKK, which was made up in part of police officers and law enforcement officials, sheriffs, and people in the military. We know that there's a need for there to be legislation that would root out those kinds of people from our law enforcement communities and from our military. We know that the figures show that incidents motivated by race, ethnicity, or ancestry have increased dramatically. We know that the Center for Strategic and International Studies showed that domestic terrorism in 2020 was at its highest level of any year the organization has analyzed. And according to CSIS, since 2015, right-wing extremists have been involved in 267 plots or completed attacks and 91 fatalities. And just under half of these fatalities were in connection with an attack that involved white supremacy. So the problem, my brothers on the other side of the aisle, I don't see any sisters over there, but the problem is real. And the people on this side of the aisle, we know it's real because we've been victimized by it throughout history. So we've been the victims, and the folks who've been the victimizers look like y'all. And maybe that's why you are not willing to admit that this is a problem that needs to be addressed by this legislation. But I'm glad that we have the majority so that we can do something about it, because when my friends on the other side of the aisle, if they should ever claim the majority, we're going to be on the menu, and it does not look good. So we're going to have to get out here and make sure that that doesn't happen. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back for.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like the words taken down at the